Good morning and welcome to Veronica Live. This is our fifth unplugged version, and I'm in here this morning with statesman John Salek. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Veronica, from really cold Georgia up here. 20 degrees today.
Really cold
20
Florida
degrees.
for the last week. It's been way too much, I have to tell you. But I wanted to tease our lineup this morning. We've got a huge show. We're going to be joined this morning by attorney Jason Gonzalez. He's from the Lawson Huck Gonzalez law firm, and he just flew up with America's governor to Iowa and had a front row seat to the Iowa caucuses. So we'll talk to him about the caucus and what went down. And so he'll be joining us first this morning, followed by Sheriff Tommy Ford, our Bay County Sheriff, who is also running for office. So we'll see what his future plans are. And, next week he's got an event too. So can't wait to talk to him. And then my priest is back on the show, Father Michael Nixon from St. Dominic Catholic Church. And there's a big initiative, not just for the Catholics, but for our county to fight for marriage because we have a high divorce rate. So we will chat with him on what's going down to help people have solid, strong marriages in these hard times that we live in. And finally, this morning, we will be joined by Stephenie Brown, and she is the author of The Door, a 90-day devotional embracing transitions, opportunities, and divine encounters. And the book is excellent, so can't wait to have her on. But what a busy week, John. We haven't been on for 2 weeks, and I've done political things in Tally now for 2 weeks in a row. So,
Well, you got the session going on. We had the thing with the chairman over there, the chairman's race for the Republican Party of Florida, which was very interesting, and I know you were heavily involved in that. And
I was.
Unfortunately, my friend Peter Feynman did not make it, but hopefully Evan will work out. That's all we can hope for, right? After all,
right.
But
But anyways. It was a crazy week because 2 Mondays ago, I was in Tallahassee. I worked for Peter Feynman, our national committee man, who was running to be our chairman. And so our former chairman was finally ousted that day. And Peter was running against Evan Power, who is the vice chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. But I must say it was an unusual session. All of the political players showed up. We had Congressman Matt Gaetz, Congressman Dunn was there, Congressman Byron Donald, who is also wanting to run for governor. And the governor also had 10 appointees that he quickly filled in. So, it's just crazy. It's so crazy what went down. And I don't know. In the long run, Evan won, and it was very interesting, John. It was a closed-door event. They didn't let us in, and I was hanging out with national press, so they were pretty irked because it was supposed to be an open-door event.
That's exactly right. The only time RPOF closes sessions is called an executive session, where they discuss business that's not really public business, like lawsuits or whatever. Things that have no business in public, but the elections are always open. So I was really surprised they closed it.
It was very frustrating, and Peter's speech was incredible. Plus, he had over $1 million. He had donors that said they were going to donate immediately if he won. And I had people in the room texting me, and Evan's a nice guy. They were not impressed with his speech. He didn't have donors, but ultimately, he won because that's who the governor wanted. So it just was extremely frustrating. And, and there was a lot of deals going on because I think Evan worked out with Senator Joe Gruder, who now has stepped in to run as national committee man. So, I hope we're Republican in our heart, and we're all going to have to dig deep, but it was bloody. I'm telling you, it was bloody.
What you saw there was a Trump versus DeSantis split in the Florida party, and that's the governor did what the governor does. The governor's the head of the Republican Party of Florida. Period. That's although most people support Trump, so that's what you had. Peter's on Trump. He's endorsed him. So and Governor DeSantis did what a governor does, He put his people in there to run things, and that's his prerogative.
And that was what came out of it, John, was people, they were angry because they felt like it was a setup, that now the RPOF only works for Evan, excuse me.
For DeSantis.
For DeSantis.
Right,
Let me take that back.
That's exactly
and
right.
so that's not what their job is. The RPOF's job is to help the candidates that are running. That is both Trump and DeSantis. And now Evan for sure is for DeSantis. And all kinds of things came out of it too, that his wife worked for DeSantis. They sent out a hit piece that was sent to me about a DUI he had 5 years previously. Plus he'd worked for lobbyist, David Ramba, so that was apparently a Dem. So I don't know how they could support somebody that fully isn't Republican to the core. I mean, Evan's great. He's been on our show, but
it's the Tallahassee swamp, is what it is.
Well,
that's all it is.
It was.
We have our own version of the swamp, okay?
Which we will talk about all of that, and then this Wednesday, I again was in Tallahassee, and we will talk about that this morning as well, because I was sworn in, elected by the Republican Liberty Caucus to be the Northwest Regional Director, and they do all kinds of incredible things. So we'll talk about what they do too. And I ran around for 2 days and met with legislators on some of the bills that they were supporting. So I definitely want to talk about that with you this morning. But when we come back, we will be joined by attorney Jason Gonzalez, who is on the front lines in Iowa, and we will hear what he has to say. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we are here with our first guest this morning, and you know him well. He's often my wingman in here, and we've got attorney Jason Gonzalez from the law firm Lawson Huck Gonzalez. It's always taking on the woke world. And Jason just flew up to Iowa and got to see the caucuses up close and personal at minus 16 degrees. So welcome back to freezing Florida, Jason.
Thanks, Veronica, and it's quite cold here in Tallahassee. I know it's cold where you are, but it feels nice and warm compared to what I was out in Iowa facing.
Yeah, so you flew up there to support America's governor, and tell us what you were doing up there.
Yeah, this was my first Iowa caucus experience. I had never gone up in any of the previous campaigns that I'd supported, but I just felt strongly about going and sharing what I know about Governor Ron DeSantis and what an amazing president he'd be. So I finished up some hearings down in Miami and headed north. And I had to stop actually in Memphis for the night on Saturday because the storm was so bad up in Iowa. It was like 40 knot winds on the runway. So there was no way I could have landed until the next morning. The snow had passed. But then it had gotten really cold, and so we landed. It was 16 below when we landed, and I can't even describe it. As a Florida person, it's nothing like just normal, freezing temperatures here. It's like you step outside, and it goes through your clothes within about a second and a half. And it feels like you have nothing on. And, yeah, to your core, and it's painful, and you're like running to get in the car or get back inside. It was really a different kind of cold, but it was my first caucus experience. I went up there. Honestly, I was very ignorant as to how it works. It's like nothing else in the country, and I mean I've been around politics a long time. I was general counsel to the Republican Party of Florida. I had just never really focused on how they do that. I knew it was unique, but the way it works is you're assigned to a precinct. Each campaign will send out one person to each of the 1,600 precincts, and they let people from out of state come in and speak on behalf of the candidate. So they let one person speak on behalf of each candidate, and they give them up to usually about 3 minutes. That's what they had allotted for me to speak for Governor DeSantis. And if you want to hear, I can kind of tell you how that went in the caucus site.
Yes, because I feel like I don't understand caucuses either, and I'm very political. So tell us.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's not run by the state; it's run by the parties, and so the Democrats didn't have one. this year. So it was just the Republican Party of Iowa runs it, and it's really run very locally. And it's not the rules are very relaxed. I mean, you walk into the precinct I was assigned to was way out in a rural part of Iowa in the cornfields. There were about 68 people that showed up at this precinct. It's really, you kind of think of it like a primary election where everyone who wants to vote is required to show up in person at the same time, talk about it, and then vote. And the balloting was, here's a little, piece of blank paper, write who you are voting for, and some lady in the corner of the room sits there and counts them up. It is not like a really formal, strict like primary process that we have in Florida. But they gave us the opportunity to speak on behalf of the candidate we're there for. Nobody showed up for Nikki Haley, or any of the other candidates, other than one lady was there to speak for Trump, and I was there to speak for Governor DeSantis, and they had some other local party business that they talked about, and then they had us speak. And I just told them, I'm not working for the campaign. I don't work for DeSantis' administration. I'm just there because I've seen him up close in Tallahassee and just know he would be a wonderful president. And here are a couple of the things I have seen that make him unique. And I also said, I think Donald Trump was an extraordinary president and did some wonderful things, but we all have to admit there were some things that did not get finished, such as border security and certainly the economy. And there's some unforced errors and some controversies that are distractions that you will not see with a President Ron DeSantis. And if Ron DeSantis says there's going to be a border wall, there's going to be a border wall, and it's going to be done within a year or two. So that was kind of the theme of what I talked to them about. And then the lady speaking for Trump spoke, and then they passed out pieces of paper, and everybody voted, and Trump came in first and DeSantis second, and that was similar to the whole statewide results, and that was expected based on the polling. But it was really, it's actually, I like the process a lot because it's really just true democracy, and you're coming together with the people in your community, in your neighborhood, and talking about it. And they had folks actually asked to give comments on the candidates, some of the voters that were not the assigned person to give the speech. But some people stood up and said, for instance, one voter stood up and said, hey, I think Vivek Ramaswamy has a lot to offer, and he's refreshing, and he said some nice things. And then another lady said, I really feel compelled to stand up and say, I like some of the stuff he said, but he's not ready for these reasons. So there was some of that back and forth. Everybody was incredibly nice, but we came in second, and then we drove an hour back to Des Moines, Iowa, where the governor and his campaign were set up for him to give some remarks at the end of the evening.
Well, it was 51 for Trump, 21 for DeSantis. Nikki Haley came in at 19%, and from what I was able to garner, I guess 110,000 people came out to do this. So that seems pretty incredible. So were you watching the woman count the votes, or does she go into a back room? I mean, how does that work?
No, she was at a table in the corner of the room with the other 60-some voters. We were still talking local party business while they went in the corner at a table and just counted them one by one. And then they announced the results, and then they started talking about they asked for proposals for the state party platform, that they're going to have a state convention, and so then the voters could say, hey, I think we ought to have a plank in the platform, on this issue or that issue. There was a discussion of a plank about protecting women's sports, for instance, and then they debated that, and then they talked about who was going to be sent as delegates to their state convention. So that's really how it went. They announced the results and talked about proposals for their state party platform, and then it was over.
Yeah, Jason, one of the things that I'm curious about, the Nikki Haley thing there was some discussion that the precincts where she did well, that they had Democrats come in and participate. Did you see any evidence of that in the one you were at?
So at the very rural precinct out in the cornfields that I was at, that did not happen, and she only got a few votes. But Jennifer Kennedy, who's a good friend and will be the first woman Speaker of the Florida House of Representatives, she was out there with us. She was sent to a different precinct that was in a college town, and they did exactly what you heard about, with the Democrats coming in to vote for Nikki Haley. And Jennifer, Representative Kennedy, told me that, well, number one, Haley won her precinct, like, overwhelmingly. So it was totally skewed. And she said it was no mystery to them. She watched them come in and change their registration. And so that is a big flaw in their process. And I saw how they could do it at my precinct, because as the voters came in a line, they lined up and they just had paper sign-in cards. And if you wanted to register Republican on the spot and participate, you could. That's how informal the process was. So Jennifer Kennedy at her precinct watched tons of Democrats come in and say, I want to change to be a Republican. And they registered on the spot Republican and voted for Haley. And in her precinct, Haley beat Trump and DeSantis by a significant margin. So that's unfortunate, because that doesn't reflect the Republican Party's really their preference for president.
Yeah, that's why I'm so against open primaries anywhere. It's like Republicans should be electing a Republican person, not. It was almost reminded me of Rush Limbaugh's Operation Chaos back in the Obama Clinton days.
Yeah, and Florida really dodged a bullet, because you may recall that 2 cycles ago there was this jungle primary constitutional amendment proposed in Florida.
Yep.
And it was challenged at the Supreme Court as to whether the ballot title and summary were misleading. And the Supreme Court said, no, they sufficiently state what that amendment would do. So it did get to the ballot, but thankfully the Florida voters rejected it. But we were very close. And most of those amendments, as you know, they pass. If they make it to the ballot, they pass. This one did not, thankfully. It would have wrecked our primary process. And, yeah, you would have had Democrats voting in Republican primaries, and just really would have been a terrible situation.
I was a state committee man at the time for Bay County and on RPOF, and I was surprised the number of people in RPOF that were supporting that idea, which was really stupid and a disaster waiting to happen. I'm just curious, where is this going with Governor DeSantis? I mean, he finished second. That was kind of expected. Looking ahead, New Hampshire's not looking good. South Carolina's not looking good. And I suspect when we get to Florida, I don't want to see Governor DeSantis become Jeb Bush. Okay, I really don't.
Right.
Well, this morning too, they said that I was hearing a news outlet that Nikki Haley's pumped $27 million into New Hampshire. I mean, the number is just insane.
But she's not going to win it though. That's the thing though. It's like, I don't care how much money she puts in, she's not going to win it. So,
no, she's not. And it does. The polling looks really bad for the governor in New Hampshire right now. And so I think he's going to focus a lot in South Carolina. And I will tell you, so if Nikki underperforms with the expectations that are put on her in New Hampshire, and then they had we've got a month before South Carolina. And this is very interesting, and a lot of people don't know this, but the governor has, I think, over 130 current or former South Carolina legislators that have endorsed him. This is Nikki Haley's state, and she, I believe at last count, had barely 3 dozen that had endorsed her. And people had told us that she was not beloved by the folks in South Carolina once she left as governor and did some other things that they disagreed with. So that's fascinating that Ron DeSantis has 2 to 3 times, 3 or 4 times as many folks that had worked with Nikki Haley that are endorsing Ron DeSantis. So he may overperform if he stays in through South Carolina, which I expect him to do. He may overperform there, and if he could pull the upset and be in second place, we need him there, even if he is going into some of the other primaries, with a disadvantage in delegate votes. We need him to stay in because, as we all know, President Trump has some major issues going on right now. Some of them are a total farce, legal actions. Some of them are, from a lawyer's perspective, are going to present major problems for him. We need Ron DeSantis, at the very least, to be the person that's got the second most delegates as we go into the spring and move towards the convention. I would love for people to look at this like, Donald Trump was important and the right person at the right time. He was disruptive of some things that needed to be disrupted, but Ron DeSantis is the right person at this time. And he's all the Trump policies, but he's more effective at getting them done. And I'm saying that based on what we have seen in Florida. I mean, there's evidence of that. Everything he said he would do, he does it, and he does it quickly and efficiently. And then we win in the courts. I mean, eventually we may get bad judges in the trial court challenging those reforms, and then we win in the appellate courts. He will get these things done that we loved about the Trump administration. And I hope, the voters, as these primaries progress, that Ron DeSantis will just get more and more momentum. But there's realities in these campaigns, and he's going to face financial realities in the short term that he's and folks need to support him. But that's where I see it right now as a Ron DeSantis supporter.
Well, what do you see as his end game on this, Jason? I'm just curious. I understand the second place thing, but unless you're going to have a brokered convention where for some reason Trump, becomes incapacitated, whatever, and I see this happening on the Democrat side, by the way, with the Biden, where they get there, they've got all the delegates, but Biden ends up not being the candidate because they end up in a brokered convention. And I kind of see this going the same way. If DeSantis people and Trump people are the same people, okay? That's the part about Nikki Haley. It makes Nikki Haley different. The Trump people and the DeSantis people will never vote for Nikki Haley. I will never vote for Nikki Haley. I think.
Well, I can't stand her.
Right. Mm-hmm. But what's the end game at the convention? Is it to hope for a brokered convention and then have the Trump delegates vote for Ron? Is that kind of what they're looking at?
Well, I think the governor he's focused on just spreading the message of what he's done in Florida, with the hope that he really starts to pick up a lot of delegates in these primaries. But I'll just say, in any Republican primary process, every year, at some point, there's going to be a reality in the vote counts, and we may get to a convention where it's a foregone conclusion for one of the candidates. And I don't think you look at a brokered convention, but it is always good, whoever is kind of the last alternative. We certainly wouldn't want it to be Haley. We would want it to be Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump if DeSantis could overcome him. But at the very least, I think we'll end up in a unified convention. I don't think anybody's wanting a brokered convention. I'm only saying that there's real problems, especially for the president in the case that's in the Southern District of Florida over the documents that were removed from the White House. And look, I'm the first to say that other presidents have taken things they shouldn't have taken, and they were not held accountable. But the problem is, in this instance, they seem to have him dead to rights on some serious violations. And he's got a number of people that worked in Mar-a-Lago who have come forward and said he told them, to not disclose some documents they had. That worries me a whole lot. When you've got a federal judge he appointed that sees that, and she's not just going to disregard the law. she's going to have to follow it. There's going to be a jury there, and it worries me. So that's why, I don't want a brokered convention. Governor DeSantis doesn't want a brokered convention, but we definitely need we need an alternative if something just gets out of control in these cases that are pending. All that said, many of these other cases against the president are outrageous, atrocious that they brought those, and I think that's helping the president. Certainly, everybody knows that's helping him politically.
So, as a lawyer, what do you think of what's going on with Fani Willis and boyfriend?
Yeah, none of that surprises me either. Frankly, it seems to be a common theme that there's corruption.
So Jason, can you define the broker convention for people that don't understand that?
Well, if you had a situation, there are a lot of different scenarios where you could have the candidate that's got either can't get a majority in the first balloting, and then there can be some negotiation and trading of votes, or you could have a candidate. I mean, if you had a candidate that passed away who has got the most delegates or even a majority going into the convention, then there are procedures in the RNC rules and the convention rules as to how they deal with it and select a different nominee. So that's what a brokered convention would be. There were attempts at it in 2016. It was actually Mike Lee was leading that to try to get Ted Cruz nominated over Donald Trump, and it failed. It happened on, I think, Monday afternoon of the convention, and it died pretty quickly. But that was more of a situation where Donald Trump had the nomination locked up, and they were trying to take it away from him. Usually a real brokered convention would typically be that you come in with each of the top candidates having a plurality of the delegates, and none of them have a majority, and so then there's going to be some negotiation. I don't see that scenario happening. I could only see that us having a convention that comes out with a different nominee if you had one of the nominees somehow kind of sidelined due to a conviction. That's what I worry about, and we've got the right people in the race that would promote the right policies. So I think it's going to come out the right way, and we're running against the worst president and somebody who's not even physically, mentally capable of being president.
So true.
This, to be honest, a no-brainer on this one.
I mean, right. How do we take out Nikki Haley? Because apparently now George Soros is one of her huge donors, so that she's been able to fund all these mailers and ads. And then yesterday I was laughing because they came out alleging these two affairs. These men have come forward saying that she had affairs with them. And it's not just, now she hates the Daily Mail because that's where the story broke, but it's Newsweek, Politico, it's everywhere. So when is her last hurrah going to be, Jason? We've got to get rid of this woman.
Well, and I hadn't even heard about that. My gosh. But I think that if she underperforms in South Carolina, there's not much left for her after that. She would have come in third in Iowa. Who knows where she ends up in New Hampshire? If her own state doesn't have her, neck and neck with the front runner, then after that, there's not much of a place for her. As everybody knows from the polling, if Ron DeSantis were to get out of the race, it would be over for Nikki Haley very quickly because all his votes would go to President Trump. Right. Whereas if Haley got out, those voters would break in different ways. There's no viable path for her to get to a majority of delegates. That just doesn't seem like it's mathematically possible.
And then Senator Tim Scott last night, endorsed Donald Trump, so that was another blow to her
right.
in South Carolina.
With Vivek.
That's right.
So do you think, Jason, when it's all said and done, if it is Trump, will DeSantis and Trump have a kumbaya? And I would love DeSantis to be like Secretary of Defense because we would know where he is, or Secretary of State. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you would never have a scenario that I could imagine where Ron DeSantis would not be supportive of the conservative agenda. I mean, there's no scenario where he wouldn't be supportive of the conservative agenda. So, I don't know how that ends up looking, but I know we'll all be happy with where things end up, and I hope he's president, and I think he'd be the best president we've ever had.
I agree with you, Jason. I'm just curious, when it comes to Florida, everybody in Florida, all the political heavies have endorsed Trump, and what I'm afraid, back to the Jeb Bush comparison, what
Right.
does $100 million buy you? Nothing. Buys you third place, fourth place, whatever, and essentially
Right.
kills your future. And when it comes to the Florida primary, I'm just afraid that Ron DeSantis is going to lose badly to Trump, and that is going to severely damage him in the state of Florida. So,
yeah, I think if he doesn't prevail in the primaries, if he doesn't prevail even in the Florida primary, which I still have hope for, he will be right back to doing what he's been doing, governing the state like no other governor has, and I really think he doesn't have some of the issues that Governor Bush had and the Bush family had at that time. And he's a very different person. I loved Governor Bush, but I strongly disagreed with him not, getting behind the party nominee. I just don't see Ron DeSantis being in the same shape, because if he doesn't get the nomination, he's going to be our governor for the next 3 years. And he's going to continue to do the extraordinary things he's doing. And I think the Republican voters in all Floridians will benefit from that and appreciate it. So I do think, I don't think he's going to end up in a scenario like Governor Bush did.
Well, I've got a final question as we wrap this up, but the last couple weeks, they are dusting off Michelle Obama as maybe the next president. Do we need to be scared of this? I mean, personally, that woman, I can't stand her more than Nikki Haley. But I'm not joking, Jason. She's everywhere, and she's coming out saying she's so scared for our future. And so I mean, if she can give up the private chef and the Martha's Vineyard, I think she might step through that door.
She's woefully unqualified to be president, and her value system is so far outside of mainstream American values that that just I understand the concern, but I have to have more faith in the American people that they would ever do that. But I understand what you were seeing happening. I've noted it too, and they may.
Okay.
The Biden's numbers are horrific for good reason, and there's plenty in their party. I think 2 out of 3 in their party do not want Biden to be nominated again and run for re-election. So it could be a very interesting year on their side.
So are you headed to New Hampshire or South Carolina? What's in your political airplane future? Are you going to go up there to these places?
I definitely will be up soon, knocking on doors in South Carolina, maybe New Hampshire. I've got some major arguments coming up. We got I'm arguing against the abortion amendment at the Supreme Court in February, and that's really a focus right now. That's an important one.
Okay. Well, continue to work hard for us, Jason. I'll be knocking on your door. You're one of my favorite wingmen, and thanks for fighting the fight, because we love DeSantis too, so you know that.
I know that, yes. Thank you, Veronica.
All right. God bless. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jason.
Take care.
We'll be right back on Veronica Live. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we are here with one of our favorite sheriffs on the whole planet, and that is Sheriff Tommy Ford of Bay County, and he is back to join us today, and he's got a lot to talk about. Welcome back, Sheriff.
Hey, good morning.
Well, you're here with Statesman John Salick as well, and I guess the
Hey, John.
big news is
How you
that
doing?
you officially filed yesterday to run to be our sheriff again. So tell us about that.
I did. It's been the greatest honor of my life to serve as sheriff for the last 7 years, and I think we've accomplished a lot. We've been through a lot together with Bay County, from hurricanes to fires to tornadoes and spring break takeovers and things like that. But if the locusts come, I'm out. But other than that, I'm all in. It's a pleasure to serve this community and protect this community and get to witness the amazing things that the Bay County Sheriff's deputies and staff do every day, to the sacrifice and service that they give to the community to keep them safe. So I'm all in, and it's an honor.
Sheriff, for people that don't know you, tell us your background, where you went to school and how long you've been in law enforcement. And has it always been in Bay County?
So I grew up over in Port St. Joe. So to go to the doctor or buy clothes, anything, we came over to Bay County, to Panama City. And so I feel like I grew up in Gulf and Bay counties. Went to Gulf Coast Community College at the time and majored in business, and then went to the University of West Florida in Pensacola and got my bachelor's degree in accounting and finance, and then worked with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for about 17 or 18 years. I was a special agent with them, worked all different areas of the state. I was assigned to Tallahassee, Jacksonville, San Augustine, primarily focused on major drug crimes, but public corruption, violent crime. Kind of the gamut that FDLE works in criminal investigations, and moved back here in 2003 as the supervisor, or what they call the resident agent in charge of the Panama City field office, which covers the 6 counties in the 14th Judicial Circuit, and ran the field office. And just having grown up here, my wife grew up here. It was just an honor to get back here and worked some pretty big cases with FDLE while I was at the field office. The baby Shannon case, the missing infant in Washington County, was about a month before I went to the sheriff's office, and we searched day and night for 4 days and recovered her safely in a box under the bed of her caretakers at her caretaker's house. So that was very rewarding. Worked the Mariana quadruple homicide in 2005, 2006, and some other cases, but really developed a relationship with Sheriff McKeith and the Bay County Sheriff's Office, and just fell in love with that agency, their culture, and the way they do business, and the way they're relentless against crime, but also the way they serve the community. So he offered me a position as his operations commander in 2009. And in 2010, his chief deputy, J.B. Holloway, retired, so I assumed that role. So I had a wonderful opportunity to sit beside and learn from Sheriff McKeith for 6 or 7 years, and thought we would retire together because I didn't think he'd ever get out of it. But he decided to retire, and I had to step up. So, but it's been an honor. He's still my phone a friend option when I.
Oh, that's good to know. And
how
I've
been
big
doing
is
this
your
about 30
office?
years now.
Sheriff, how big is your office, and what is your operating budget for our area?
So we have a staff of about 550 people. About 230 of those are your sworn law enforcement deputies, about 125 detention deputies at the jail. And I never want to, their role is as important as any in keeping our community safe, and they have a tough job. So I very much appreciate them. With support staff and all, we're about 550 individuals,
Wow.
and our budget's about $55 million.
Huge.
So
And I recently, go ahead.
My accounting degree certainly comes in handy with trying to manage a budget at that size.
So Sheriff,
I would say that.
If you had any controversies, I mean, there hasn't been much news, as far as issues with budgets or any conflicts with other local law enforcement agencies. Are we just blessed to have a good bunch of people, everybody working together well, or are there some issues that just haven't come up to the surface yet?
That's one of our greatest blessings to me, is the relationships that we have with our local police departments. We've got 5 municipal police departments in Bay County, and we've all made it an intentional effort to work together to keep Bay County citizens safe. And I think that's been one of our greatest strengths. All 5 of the police chiefs are my friends. They all support me for reelection, which means so much to me. But we've been able to do joint operations and joint efforts such as our Bay Real-Time Operations Center, and it serves the citizens well, because having worked in about half the counties of the state with FDLE, it's not like that everywhere. There are some places that the police chief and the sheriff don't even talk to one another, and something has happened in the past where there's a controversy and they won't, they've had a falling out, and the citizens don't benefit from that. So very proud of that relationship. And as far as the budget and things like that goes, we've received great audits every year I've been in office, and just feel like things have gone well and want to continue our efforts.
Well, I want to talk about my ride along with you the other day. I was connected to National Press, and they wanted to get first, they wanted to be on the front lines of all the tornado activity that hit our region. I think it was January 8th. And so I was so proud to be with you, Sheriff, and the Epic Times, and to tell our story actually internationally. And that story has gone everywhere. And then I made a little video, too, that I have on Veronica Live with the up-close look at the hurricane damage on the beach. But everything seemed to be under control and flowed so well. And your staff was briefing you, because before we went out there, we actually had some looters, and your people handled it. So talk about this. I hate to say that we're always in, the bullseye, but I want you at the helm, because you seem to be handling the bullseye, the fires, the tornadoes, the hurricanes with such ease.
Well, I'm starting to take it personal a little bit. But it has been, since I've been sheriff, I have been kind of put in the role of a crisis manager. And Veronica, I appreciate you bringing Epoch Times down, because they were able to tell our story nationally. Sometimes I know during Hurricane Michael and all, we didn't feel like our story was getting told. So they did a really good job on that article. But we've made intentional efforts at the sheriff's office, and it really kind of stems from the school shooting situations. Parkland really, I look at the crises that we had here in Bay County, but probably one of the things that shook me the most over my time as sheriff is the Parkland shooting. And I wanted to make sure that we were prepared to respond to a situation should that happen here. Pray that it doesn't, and we work to prevent that. So we instituted a active shooter incident management model. I brought in a training company that taught us this model. We've lived it and breathed it, and put it into our culture. We've worked with fire and EMS and our other police departments to where we're all working together the same way. And we use the benefit of that is it's an incident command structure that we can use on any type of disaster or crisis. And we've really kind of adopted that. And I feel that we're well suited from experience as well as training to manage these crisis situations.
Sheriff, they came out with the Uvalde report, analysis and everything that this past week. Does your agency, does your sheriff's department go through those kind of reports and look at your operational procedures and structures and say, hey, maybe, we don't want to make the same mistake here, and it looks like, if we do this is our policy, maybe we need to change it. Do y'all have a process for looking at those kind of things?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in that. And I think Parkland was a good learning environment from that. Uvalde, I think that our profession evolved a lot after Columbine and lessons learned. I want to learn these lessons from other places and not have to be the one that people are learning lessons from. So I'm a big believer in after action review and, changing our policy, our training. And we've really done that after every school shooting. After Parkland, some really great things in school safety came about. We worked closely with the school district and Superintendent Husfeld, and Superintendent McQueen is continuing a focus on safety. But we put the school guardian program in place. We were one of the first agencies to do that, where now we have teachers and administrators that we train for about 160 hours during the summer in very intense training and high training standards that are now in our schools that are armed and able to work with us should an assailant come into our schools. We've got our school resource deputies highly trained. I was actually asked to serve on a subcommittee of the Parkland Public Safety or the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission to work to develop the model policy for the state in responding to active assailant situations. So again, Parkland shook me to the core, and we got I think we were prepared before, especially from a tactical standpoint, how we train our deputies, but really feel like we've come a long way in how we are organizing ourselves and responding to those type of incidents, and a lot of good lessons learned from that.
So, Sheriff, Tuesday and Wednesday, I was running around in Tallahassee at the Capitol with the Republican Liberty Caucus, and we met with numerous Republican legislators, and they do not want to do away with the red flag law. So I wanted to hear your stance on that. And then they were fine with to buy a long gun, you need to be 21, and having served my country, for 20 years, at 18, I definitely would want to buy a weapon. So I wanted to hear your stance on this. And these Republicans did not, they like the way it is. They don't want to shake anything up with the Second Amendment. And I kind of was shocked by that, because the Republicans were so strong when it comes to, being able to buy weapons lawfully. Of course, I want you trained if you own a weapon. But so I was a little shocked by this. So tell me your stance on red flag laws and, being 21 to buy a weapon.
Right. So I'm a strong Second Amendment supporter, and I think that, that's not about the comfort of government or law enforcement in these situations. It's about the citizen's right, to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon. So things like the permitless carry I support. Open carry, I can't say doesn't cause me some concerns in certain situations like our spring break takeovers and things like that. But again, it's not my concern that is in the Constitution. It's the citizens' rights. The red flag laws, or what we call a risk protection order, I think that they are a needed tool, because over the course of 30 years, I've seen numerous situations where somebody had a mental illness and had weapons, and we were very concerned that they were going to, conduct some type of a mass shooting or harm themselves or others. But I think that it has to be tightly controlled and regulated. At the sheriff's office, it requires either a major or above approval to do that. We've done very few of those. There are some agencies that I'm a little concerned about. I won't name any, and they're not really around here, but that kind of use that tool a little bit too much. But I do think that Florida got it right in the sense that it requires a law enforcement investigation. It requires judicial review. There's due process. There's also a protocol in there, a procedure in there, that if the person has a family member or a friend that can store those weapons for them and sign an affidavit saying that I'll make sure that this person doesn't have them during the time the risk protection order is in place, then they're able to store those weapons. Like I said, we use it very infrequently here in Bay County, but there are situations that arise that I do think it's a benefit. As far as
that's great
age,
to hear that.
As far as the age to purchase a weapon, I certainly don't think that makes us any safer. I'm not in charge of making the laws. I enforce them, but I think that if it's 18 to go into the military, then I agree that that that's what it should be, but I don't make the laws.
So I know you've got to run, but you've got a big event on Wednesday at the county government building.
I do.
So tell us what's happening Wednesday.
So I'm announcing, my re-election campaign for sheriff, and it's just been the greatest honor of my life and career to be sheriff of Bay County and serve and support the men and women that are out there doing the job. They do amazing things on y'all's behalf every day. They make tremendous sacrifices, and I've really viewed my role as support to them in doing that job and getting them the tools, the training, and the resources that they need to do that, and being their cheerleader.
And as you run off, I know you have a big event today, and you wanted to shout out to someone very special in your life. So please share.
Oh my goodness, I do have a big event today. I am I'll have the honor of walking my 84-year-old mother down the aisle as she gets remarried, and to a gentleman named Buddy Martin, and wish them all the best and all the happiness in the world. I can't say it's not a little tough to do, but want Mama to be happy.
Well, many blessings to your mother and her new marriage at the young age of 84. And I will see you, Sheriff, out at your campaign event on Wednesday. And always, check 6, and God bless all of the men and women that work for you and you as well.
Great. Thank y'all so much. Have a good day.
Thanks, Sheriff. Thanks. Well, that was great. We had Sheriff Ford joining us, and when we come back, we will be joined by Father Michael Nixon from the St. Dominic Catholic Church. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we're in between guests now, but I'm here with Statesman John Salick, and oh my goodness, what a morning already. I mean, that was the shocking part for when I was running around with the Republican Liberty Caucus. The incoming speaker, Al Britton, was not a fan of shaking up anything, John, when it came to Second Amendment. And then the current speaker, Pasadoma, she didn't even want to engage one thing about the Second Amendment. I mean, it was just shocking that Republicans, to me that's weak.
It is, and the thing I've been pushing for many years, and that's open carry. Speaking of the Second Amendment. And Speaker Renner saying it's not going to pass this session again, and it's like every year it's the same stuff, It's like, well, we just don't want it. We don't want to spend the political capital it takes to do open carry, and I don't understand. I understand the reasons. A lot of the sheriffs, not some, a lot of them in the state of Florida are against open carry, and for whatever reason. But it gets back to. It's a Second Amendment right. They managed to pass, the constitutional carry, which means you don't need a concealed carry license anymore. And it's like, so what's the difference between that and open carry? If I can conceal carry, but if I happen to expose the gun accidentally and somebody sees it, I can be arrested for that. And that's the part that's nutty, I just don't get it.
Well, when we met with the incoming speaker for the next session, Al Britton, he had toured Parkland, and he told, meeting with parents, somebody was drinking a drink on the desk. It was still there but dried out. He said they're eventually going to knock that building down. But it was kind of like, had you seen what I'd seen, then you would understand. But when you look into this story, that kid had issues. I think the cops had come to his house 17 times. Plus, when the whole thing went down, the law enforcement lead hesitated, and more people were killed. So I mean, we definitely have a breakdown. And then one of the guys in the Republican Liberty Caucus was from Polk County, and he talked about they've had over 2,000 confiscations.
Yes.
Of weapons, and people don't get them back. And so that was one of the things that Republican Liberty of Caucus was fighting so hard for, was if you have your weapons confiscated and it doesn't move forward, that you get them back, because apparently it costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get a lawyer to fight for your weapons. And I was shocked that it was Polk County that's had over 2,000 of these. So what Sheriff Ford had just said right now, that somebody can sign over your weapons with an affidavit, nobody brought that point up. But I'm telling you, the incoming speaker was just like, if you'd seen what I'd seen, you would keep this, the red flag law in place, and then you'd keep the not buying a long arm until you're 21 in place. And how are we freedom Florida when growing up my entire life, I could go buy a weapon at 18. I can get married. I can join the military. I don't know.
That's the problem with overreactions. When you make a law based on an overreaction to a situation that it's like, well, how did he buy the gun to begin with? And it's like, it wasn't the gun. It was the person. And
who was a quack. that should have been handled.
Well, and we go back, one of the stories in the afterburner this week is from the Wall Street Journal about more teens who use marijuana are suffering from psychosis. And we've talked about this before.
That was a strong story.
Right. That's the root cause of this stuff, folks, it's the drugs. And these teens in smoking. This is not marijuana from when I was in high school, 40 or 50 years ago.
Well, they're saying it's so much stronger,
far more potent, and of course now it's legal, so everybody's out there, getting high, and the psychosis, the episodes of psychosis are increasing, and then you mix that in with a gun, and it's like, okay, so let's fix the problem. But no, what's our answer to that is, hey, let's have even less laws or more lax laws on marijuana and letting them get high. I mean, it's
and the funny thing is, they think that marijuana is okay, and like lately, everywhere I travel, I was just in Tampa, just in Tally, here even on my street, sometimes there's a worker. I'm like, I smell pot. Everybody's smoking pot. Vegas, New York. It is out of control, and I think definitely there's a psychosis issue, and it's shutting people's brains down, and then they're the ones going out shooting everyone.
I know
because they're smoking it every day.
Well, the curious thing, Veronica, is why is it that alcohol? You don't hear anybody talking about relaxing, the drunk driving laws and stuff. If anything, they're after making them even tougher, because people are being killed and injured. Well, people are being killed and injured from all these druggies and the psychosis, but yet for some reason we turn a blind eye and say, "Oh, it's just marijuana. It's no big deal." It's like smoking a cigarette.
We have a drug epidemic because I've had to stop and get a soda or get some gas at these gas stations, and literally every time I stop at one, there's somebody in there that is high. I mean, people are driving, drinking, drugs. Everybody's high, and we've got a problem. And so I don't know, it comes back to taking back America again. And who would ever want to make any drug legal? This is not an alcohol.
Well,
it's stronger than ever, and psychosis now,
It's just the out of sight, out of mind thing. It's like, well, it doesn't affect me in my daily whatever, and if they get high, they get high, I don't care. And it does affect you on everything because, those people that are higher, they're the ones fixing your car. They're the ones, building your house and stuff like that. When stuff starts breaking and falling, airplanes falling out of the sky, literally.
Well, and this was a Wall Street Journal story that you sent me. And that's the thing. These people, they were trapped in a delusional state. Yep. And a lot of them, once they start smoking, they can't stop because it's so addictive. But I'm in here with statesman John Salick, and you are listening to Veronica Live. When we come back, we're going to have Father Michael Nixon, a Catholic priest, talking about saving marriage. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we are here with one of our God warriors, Father Michael Nixon, and he's in charge of the St. Dominic Catholic Church. And we're going to talk about marriage this morning because I know Bay County has a big initiative, the thirdoption.com, in Bay County, trying to bring everybody that's having problems with their marriage together. And welcome to the show, Father Michael.
Veronica, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me back. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. So tell us why marriage is so important in the eyes of God. Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it said before. St. John Paul II said that as goes marriage, so goes society. So goes the nation, and then all the world. That's really the first community, the first organization, the first kind of foundation for where we learn values, where we learn, the love of God, where we learn to love each other well, and I think any person can point back to the family they grew up in, for good or for ill. That's the place where they received those lessons, or had learned them well, and they cherished that, or had to maybe later on in life had to kind of unlearn the things where it wasn't modeled well. But it's so fraught, and it's so easy, I think, particularly for married couples, just in the culture and society we're in, to forget about that and to prioritize everything else except their marriage, whether it's their kids or their jobs or career or finances, and marriage always kind of takes the, is on the back burner, so to speak. And usually is the one is the reality that suffers. And we definitely see that throughout the world. And we definitely see it in Bay County. We actually, unfortunately, have one of the highest divorce rates in the entire country here in Bay County. And so there's some good things that area pastors and leaders with Bay County Marriage Initiative have been doing to try to address that.
And why do you think we have such a high rate? I mean, sometimes I think a lot of times when you hear about divorce, the two issues I always hear about are infidelity, and then the other strong issue is finances. So do you think those two things play into it, or is it just people they get married and they're not taking this covenant seriously?
Yeah, well, a lot of times it's a lot of those forces all together. So many things are working against your marriage, and I think that's maybe the thing that we don't take seriously. And I would say this on the spiritual reality, that we believe that we're not in a neutral environment. We're in a fallen world, and so there are forces at work, oftentimes unseen forces. The devil is real that are working against our marriage, because the marriage is a threat to the devil's kingdom. The good, healthy marriage is where good, healthy children are raised, where other marriages that are healthy and life-giving and mutually enriching for the spouses, those come from that. So in a sense, as a focal point for attack, and it makes sense. But I think too, in our own area, we have a lot of people who are coming from different places. A lot of people who maybe coming from our armed forces, and so there's a lot of external pressures on the marriage as well. And then sometimes too, when things get difficult and you end up in Bay County and you're like, well, I guess I'm looking for a change now. And it becomes like, it's a very easy step towards that. But unfortunately, we know the data that God bless anyone who's gone through the pain of a divorce, but just recognizing the impacts of divorce are legion, upon children first and foremost, and children being the ones who suffer because of that. But also to the spouses themselves and society at large. All those things are impacted. So if children are suffering because of it, schools are going to be impacted because of it. Teachers' health and well-being is going to be impacted by it. Mental health professionals, are going to be overrun by it. So all those things, the domino effect is very, very real. And like I said, unfortunately, our area has a higher percentage than most. So for all those reasons.
Father Michael, I wanted to ask you a question. I was reading the newest Catholic Compass that came out, and it had some interesting statistics in there. And I was actually shocked when I read a couple of the numbers. In the Tallahassee, Pensacola diocese, there's about 72,000 Catholics and 52 parishes of the numbers that were listed. And the number that shocked me was there were 198 marriages last year in the entire diocese. I was stunned when I saw that. What is marriage just passe? Is it just gone away? I'd like to get you're in the trenches there. You talk to people every day. What's going on here with this?
Yeah, I see that definitely as because there's something within getting married to someone, that there's something that that's one of the theological virtues, which is hope. Hope is not just optimism, kind of the sun will come out tomorrow kind of thing. It's a firm trust that even though things will be difficult and there will be problems, hope acknowledges that, but says that we're gonna get through that together because God is real and He loves us, and I have a foundation that I'm standing on, which is my own family of origin. I have a community around me, of a church community, a civic community, all those sorts of things. So if you think just seriously the fact that so many of those foundations have been fractured or completely removed from people's lives, or maybe they don't have a family of origin that has any sort of togetherness, that has any sort of equal, just things held in common values, or if you have a country, obviously that's so divided within those things upon common values. If you don't have a church home, that we know religious practice for 20-year-olds is it's the least religiously practicing demographic in the history since of them taking these sorts of polls. So in a sense, if you don't have any of those sorts of things, We're taught fear and anxiety. That's kind of in the air that we breathe with the world that's around us. It becomes very hard to hope and very hard to say, can I place my trust in this other person and trust them with my life, with my future, with my well-being, to be the father or mother of my children, all those sorts of questions, which, as a 22-year-old getting married, it's not like you're able to perfectly understand the answer to all those questions or to see the future in some sort of, clear way, but you can at least say, okay, I can hope because I'm on this, I have a solid foundation backing me up. You remove all those things, and no wonder young people are hesitating or just refusing completely to get married. That's in the religious context, but we also see that just in the secular context as well. So when I do have 20-year-olds in front of me that are getting married, and we're rebuilding here at St. Dominic's, we have a nice, beautiful building now. So all of a sudden we have a lot more weddings getting scheduled, which is great. I really rejoice in that. I rejoice that it's actually a countercultural move now to get married. Well, to speak of to get married in church, but it's so beautiful when they're taking that step.
I think it's interesting you say it's countercultural now to get married in church. When I was growing up, that was kind of what you call normal.
Right? Yeah.
So how do you advise young people that are coming together? Because, I know the Catholic Church, they'll meet with you for several months trying to discuss all the hot issues, finances,
Mm-hmm.
children, coming together. What do you normally share with them, Father Michael?
Well, one of the best things that we can share with them, obviously the gospel has great insights into this, just as far as the reality of sin, our need for conversion and for forgiveness, and learn how to pray together. All those things are so important. Learning intimacy on those different levels, obviously physical intimacy, but just that emotional intimacy of being able to share what's actually going on in your heart and know how to have those conversations. And the intimacy of prayer and working together. But I would say too, those practical problem solving aspects. That's where two things that Bay County Marriage Initiative has been working hard on. We mentioned Bay Third Option with programs like Adventures in Marriage, and now Bay Third Option specifically as an ongoing kind of rolling program. Really help to give the nuts and bolts for how to have difficult conversations, how to talk, how to ask for forgiveness, ask and give forgiveness. How to talk about family situations that you'd rather not talk about, because so many of us, unfortunately, we're limited by the training, quote unquote, that we received growing up in our own families, and it's not always great, as far as like how to, either it's like I don't bring up anything difficult, or I just every time something makes me mad, I just blow up, and then then we kind of resolve it, and we think that that's normal and that's okay. But recognizing we have two people that are brought into a marriage, they're bringing all that stuff with them, and so for them to at least begin to recognize, oh, this is my tendency here. This is how I learned it, and this is how I can do something different if I want to. And there's actual help with that. And I think that's one of the great things too that a lot of these good programs have through the church. And, as I've mentioned, Bay Third Option, which is not church affiliated, but has a lot of good people that are staffing it, really begins to just help people say, you're not alone in this. And it's okay, because that's one of the things we're missing. And maybe us in Bay County, especially with so many people being in the military, so they might be far from families, and they might have,
Right.
One person might be from the West Coast, person be from, the Midwest. And so their families are far apart from each other as well. And so you don't have that sort of foundation of like, when I'm struggling, is there someone I can talk to about this? And this, obviously counseling is great, but just even the more informal, like I know I have another married couple in my life, and before that used to be I could talk to my grandparents, I could talk to my parents, I could talk to my aunt and uncle who lived across the street. They've been married 30 years, and they've gone through it all. So when we don't have that, and we're more atomized as a society, just being able to give people like, oh, you're not alone. And actually this struggle is pretty common, and here's something you can try. And then we can talk about it. How did that go when you try that out, both for the individuals and for the couple as well. So I feel that becomes such a huge grace where it's not so overwhelming. And because we know when we're in kind of the pain of hurt, of missing each other, when that most important of relationships, there's always a fight, there's always an argument, we're always falling short there. We can start to have the whole thing painted with a pretty dark brush, a pretty bleak picture, and we can start to fall into that thinking that it's always going to be like this and it's never going to change. And that's where those thoughts of leaving or divorce really become much more appealing. But if we can start to say like, oh no, it doesn't have to always be like this, and here are some practical ways you can change that augment and really are the foundation for the spiritual ways of changing as well, as far as prayer, as far as going to church together, as far as going on a marriage retreat. Those things which are great options also. A lot of people never learn those. They never learn the practical skills of how to have an argument, how to process your own emotions well, how to pick up on just kind of like the power struggle that we can sort of face, where your gain is my loss. That's a hard place to be if we've never learned those things. But I love giving people just the tools and the ability to be able to just do it in a better way. And I think that brings people a lot of peace. It's difficult. It's still hard work. You got to work hard in these areas. But when you're not alone in it, you've got a good way forward. It's such a huge gift.
Well, we seem to, as a society, to be far more self-absorbed or self-centered on a lot of these cases, and not willing to listen to the other person or even take into account their feelings. And I'm just curious where, and I've tried to follow internet trends and that kind of stuff, and there seems to be a trend of women leaving the household, particularly women that are working and have their own money and assets and that kind of stuff, that they seem to be far more willing to just walk out the door and leave it behind. And it seems like it's more because they're self-centered on what their feelings are, as opposed to the family or anything else. I'm just, how do you reverse those kind of trends?
Yeah, and it's a I think unfortunately just with that even that brief description, that's kind of describing how a lot of times men were kind of encouraged to be within society. If you're not getting what you need, go find it somewhere else. And now women kind of just picking up that same toxic trait. So it's toxic whether it's men or women. But if instead it becomes, I'm part of something greater than myself, and there's something beautiful about that. And so learning how to choose that each day. There's a conversion. There's a conversion that needs to take place. We also need to see other people do it. And I think that's when people maybe all they've seen are toxic relationships or toxic marriages or exploitative marriages, they can make those vows, and this happens a lot of times with people, growing up as a kid, and I think of young women in particular. This can impact. Like, I'm never gonna be in that situation. I'm never gonna put myself under the thumb of another person or make myself vulnerable or dependent on another person. And so it's understandable to not just to be like, oh, you're bad, you shouldn't feel that way. It's understandable, but it also keeps us, when we make those vows, out of a place of hurt and brokenness. It keeps us from the greater love and joy and freedom that God wants for us, which comes from relationship. It comes from being in a relationship with another person where I am vulnerable, where I can open up my heart, where I do trust them. And so kind of relearning those things is a process. And so the fact that it's writ large across society is in a sense, that's the macro of what we're seeing, but it comes from these micro. Obviously, there's macro kind of philosophies and stuff in society that say don't ever get married, don't ever have children, don't ever just live for yourself, make as much money as possible, which are toxic philosophies that never lead to happiness for men or women. But too, on the micro level, we need to be able to ask people like, what's your experience of this, and what would you actually hope for? What do you actually desire? Because when we start to have those conversations, I feel that's where the truth comes out. Like, I don't want to be taken advantage of. It's like, okay, good, welcome to the club. We're all, none of us want that as human beings. So how do we, in a sense, not accept the full lie of that? Therefore, I need to never be in a relationship of love or intimacy or trust or mutual submission, to use the language of Scripture, which is not about domination, but allowing the other person to love and serve you as I love and serve them. How can I start to step into that while recognizing those places of pain and hurt and disappointment that I have? Because those are real. Those struggles are real. And so and then it becomes, when I start to say, okay, I can actually open myself up in these ways, and it's not about being dominated or used or abused, but it's about being drawn deeper into love. That's beautiful. And when other couples are living that and can share their stories, which one of the things I love about, we've been talking about Bay Fair adoption, which I love about this is that it meets every Tuesday night, by the way, from 6 to 8 p.m. at 1202 Virginia Avenue in Lynn Haven. But that's kind of an ongoing rolling classes about things like respect, responsibility, conflict resolution, handling anger constructively, personality differences, childhood issues, and emotional baggage. And that each week there's couples that are sharing their own testimony. And I love that too, them talking about their own experience of how they learned about forgiveness and repair. And when another couple is honestly sharing that, and this is not from a faith perspective, this is and it's for anybody can come in at any time. It's either the couple or just one person can come in too, which is great. Obviously you prefer if it were both, but just being able to see that and see like, okay, I heard another person who had a similar background to me and had experienced that with their father, with their mother, or fatherlessness or motherlessness, or experienced the pain of a divorce before, or had someone walk out on them and made that vow, I'm never going to trust another person. And this is them beginning that process of opening back up, and this is what it looks like. And like I said, it's hard work, but it's possible. Just knowing it's possible, I think, makes a big difference for people to start to say, okay, I can do the work towards this as well, towards building a good and healthy marriage.
Well, and I wanted you to talk about that because, I've been married over 30 plus years, and I feel like I picked a great God warrior partner that has been there in my health issues, a wonderful father, so marriage can be beautiful. We've traveled around the world together. Marriage can be beautiful when it's with the right person. And so can people come back from these difficult times to have that fulfillment and feel like they're with the right person and God being part of it, Father Michael?
Absolutely. I think, God is mercy is at the very heart and center of what Jesus has revealed about who God is. And obviously for a marriage to work, both people need to, and it involves both people, and that's not always the case. And so recognizing, just that reality too. But I think no matter how faulty or failed people might be, if they have a desire for this, if they have a desire to work towards reconciliation, towards healing, towards overcoming obstacles, towards learning how to listen, all those sorts of things, I've never seen a case where it's not possible if both parties are open to it. And again, even hoping or dreaming that it could be different sometimes is hard, and that's why it's helpful to have other people pour into you. But it definitely is possible, and it works, not because the people are perfect. Veronica, your husband, aside from that,
but he's a nice guy. He's a keeper.
He's the keeper. I definitely concur. But it comes from those people being able to say, like, no matter what their background might have been, and the reasons why that would set them up maybe to fail, so to speak, say, okay, but we can learn something different. And I love that as just that's what grace is all about. It's about helping us no matter where we've been to say, like, you can do something different in the future. And when you see people that have gone through terrible situations in marriages and stuff is falling apart, and when they experience what it's like to be loved by somebody who actually loves them and cares for them, and a relationship that actually challenges them to be better, it's hard to even believe that it's real. But it is, but it is. And so learning how to step into that and live out of that, because when it's like growing up, and not to use any of these terms lightly, but growing up in a broken household, if you're all of a sudden in a healthy household, it doesn't, you have to like learn, like, oh, this is what it's like to be in a healthy household. I don't have to scream to get, to be heard. I can actually talk to people, and I can actually bring up problems without thinking someone's going to scream at me. Those sorts of things, almost like we have to, there's parts of us that are still little kids and still trying to, just trying to protect ourselves. And so kind of learning how to live these relationships in the here and now in a healthy way is what we're all about.
It's really unfortunate that I think to me, it's sad that marriage is such a great opportunity for people to experience God's love. I mean, it's as close as you can come to it in an earthly sense, I think. And why people don't want that, I just don't understand that. I mean, and you mentioned it earlier. It's like and I'm badly misquoting here, but it's wives, be submissive to your husband. Husbands, love your wives as you love yourself. That's almost like change out husband and wife for God and you, and see the beauty in that, and the wonder of that, and why people don't want to experience that is just, I just don't get it,
And that's why I think people who have done the work and are in healthy marriages, being able to share not how perfect they are, but how fulfilling that is as the work continues, I think is that much more important. I wanted to just highlight too. So Bay County Marriage Initiative it works with a lot of pastors around town, and I've been able to work with other pastors. We had I did a presentation with Pastor Daniel Cherry from Jenks Church of Christ. And that's probably the first time that a Catholic pastor and a Church of Christ pastor have ever given a joint presentation before. So wow. I just praise God for that. God working there. And Pastor Sherry's fantastic. He did all the work, and I just kind of, whenever you do a group project, you have the one guy. that was me.
You're one of those, Father Michael.
Absolutely, but it was the joy working with him. But we have coming up. So the weekend before Valentine's Day, which is actually Valentine's Day is Ash Wednesday this year, but so the 10th and 11th, that weekend is Celebrate Marriage Weekend, and we're inviting and encouraging parishes, churches. Just to have something simple for marriages that weekend, a blessing, for married couples. Some people will do, kind of renewal of marriage vows, just depending on the denomination and how they want to do that. But just praying God's blessing upon marriages at all of our churches. So we're hoping to get a good participation there. That February, again, Sunday, February 11th, a Sunday before Valentine's Day. But we're excited about that. That is National Marriage Week as well, and just an opportunity to celebrate and pray for and pray God's blessing upon marriages.
Well, I want to transition one question, and then I want you to wrap up with the marriage prayer at the end. But this week has been March for Life up in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And we've had almost 65 million babies that have never been born. And our Speaker of the House, our new guy, Mike Johnson, told a story that his parents were unwed teens and decided to have him. And a year later was Roe versus Wade. And he gave this testimony that he was so thankful that they chose life for him. How are we doing in this fight? 100,000 people are up there in a blizzard fighting to save babies. And every day, this is one of my big issues that I talk about on the radio and fight for, Father Michael.
Yeah. And thank you for that fight, because what it's recognizing is the dignity of these children, dignity of the mothers. Obviously, it's not either or for us. We recognize the dignity of both and the value. Since the overturning of Roe versus Wade, I know there's been a lot of abortions that have not happened, a lot of lives that have been spared by that. So praise God for every single life that's spared, because these are unrepeatable gifts. None of these are burdens. None of these are mistakes. That every single one of us have been willed and chosen by God. And so, I feel there's so much more that could be done, specifically in just engaging the minds and hearts of people, because I feel like abortion was one of those things that was legalized across our nation without ever really debating it, without ever really talking about what is this preborn baby, this preborn reality that fetus, which means baby, what is this? And so now that we have the science that backs it up, to be able to ask and answer these difficult questions, like, this is a human life, this is an unrepeatable life with its own DNA, his or her own heartbeat and fingerprints, and aspirations and plan from God upon their life. And so, because of that, they're worthy of respect and of protection under the law, and respect and protection just in society and our families too. And that comes back to, like, healthy families and strong families help to defend the defenseless. And the more that we divorce sex and relationships out of the context of marriage and out of the context of that foundation, it becomes much more tempting and easy for people to move towards abortion. But also just helping women who have had abortions, women who have been in those circumstances, and women in crisis pregnancies now as well. The work becomes that much more important for us, both believers and non-believers. Anyone who believes that human beings have dignity, or human rights are real, that we should all be fighting against abortion and for the dignity and rights of both the women and the babies.
Well, Father Michael, if you could lead us out in a prayer, and we want to vector everyone to thirdoption.com, and
Yeah.
you're doing God's work. You're my number one favorite God warrior. So please lead us
Oh,
out in a
thank you, Ron.
prayer.
Absolutely. Lord God, we thank you so much for today, for John and Veronica. We thank you for the gift of marriage, how it unveils the mystery of God's love, Christ's love for his church. So help us to live in that love every day. Pray for struggling marriages and those who are considering marriage, that they might be able to say yes with open hearts. So bless us in everything we do in Jesus' most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Father Michael. And I'll be
Absolutely.
calling you back. We'll be right back on Veronica Live. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we are here with our next guest this morning, and her name is Stephenie Brown, and she has written the most beautiful book. It's wonderful, and it is called The Door, 90-Day Devotional Embracing Transitions, Opportunities, and Divine Encounters. Stephenie, welcome to Veronica Live.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so great. So tell people about who you are. I'm friends with your husband, and then I saw on Facebook that you'd written this book, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get the book and have her on. So tell people who you are, so we get to know you, the author.
Sure. So I was born in Panama City. Actually grew up in Ebro, Florida, small town on the outskirts of the city. I did not grow up in a very religious family. I grew up with both parents. However, they are not alive today. They both passed on for different reasons at different times. I am actually the youngest of 5 siblings. I have 3 sisters and 1 brother. Let's see. I will tell you that I know growing up, our house is not far from a church in the area, to be honest. It's within walking distance, and while my family is not very religious, we did go to church from time to time, not just on Christmas and Easter, but I can remember, going to Sunday school and having to recite different things that we learned. And, that was as a child or a kid. But just growing up, let's see, I am an Air Force veteran. I was in the Air Force for 8 years. And it was just where, I grew up in the country, didn't know what to do with my life. So I joined the Air Force to get the GI Bill to help pay for college. And that actually helped pay for my master's degree in human resources. So my background or career has been in human resources at least 15 plus years. And this is before the pandemic. So during the pandemic, I was laid off because, of course, things were really slow. And from that point, I started helping my husband in real estate, and not having a license, you can only do certain things. So from that point, he encouraged me to kind of, go study for the license so I can help show some houses and different things like that. So I became a realtor in 2021. And when my job called me back for human resources, I passed on it. I didn't want to go back. I was like, hey, this is turning out to be, a really good process with real estate. So I really wanted to help him. And in the meantime, I also had a small business on the side and still have that small business called Jewel Fish, where I make handcrafted beach totes. And yeah, so right now that's kind of my work aspect, just, being in real estate and having a small business.
And how did you eventually find God? Because when we start to talk about your book, it's a God book. So how
Right.
did you finally have that fire in you? And you knew that you needed to follow him.
Yeah, so really interesting. So back in 2000, I lived in Pensacola. I worked for Sacred Heart Medical Group, or the hospital. And I just went through a really bad breakup. And during that process, I knew my oldest sister went to church. So I decided to call her. I was like, you know what? I'm just tired of doing things on my own. I wanted to try a different way. So she walked me through the prayer of salvation. And from there, she told me to join a church that believed in the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And she told me to start reading the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And from there, I just dove in and just started reading. And of course, didn't date for a while. I think maybe like 2 years or so. But so back in 2000, actually it's July 16th of 2000, and I wrote that date down because my older sister gave me a Bible at that time, and so I wrote that date in the Bible. From there, I just started reading the scriptures. It was just really interesting to read the different stories, and of course, Proverbs. It's full of wisdom that I wish I would have known early on in life. Just based on the daily aspects of living, different things that we all come in contact with. So from there, I just read a lot. And I can also remember, like, even moving back to this area back in 2006, the church that I'm currently a part of, True Holiness Church, since I joined, we were always reading books, studying a book. We always had questions after reading a book, whether it's a book on prayers or deliverance or just a wide variety of manuals we would, be a part of. And that still takes place up until this today. Like, for example, last year in 2023, we just finished a course called Breaking Free. And that course is a paid course through the American Association of Christian Counselors. And it's a very interesting course that talks about, like the grief process or people going through divorce, because many times it's where if someone is, going through that process or having a problem, they're more likely to reach out to the church or a church member before actually contacting someone in, like a professional, like a psychologist or, someone like that. So just reading all this different, these different books and the material, I know all of that has contributed to, my spiritual growth, as well as just, even learning more about the Bible. Now, I will say throughout all this process and the many years that I'm kind of covering, I actually used to write the church newsletters for several years, and I was also a Sunday school teacher.
Okay.
So
you've had all this prep, and fast forward, when did you start writing this book?
So I actually started last year. I think it was about, I think it was in August or July, and it was just one of those things where I heard a pastor or leader, I think it was on YouTube, and they talked about how this is the season to use discretion, to just get to work behind the scenes. You don't have to publicize what you're doing. And during that time, it was where just thinking about my husband, Corey, he's always involved in a lot of different activities, whether it's committees, real estate, and then church activities. So I wanted to take something off of his plate. And I said, hey, why don't you let me take over some of the posts for social media for our church Facebook page? And I did that. I started posting different kind of like clip arts with scriptures, and also my postings took on a more devotional style post. And from there, I want to say maybe like 2 to 3 weeks into it, my mother-in-law, who's also my co-pastor, she said, hey, these are really good. Have you thought about doing a devotional? Now, at the time, I thought, I don't know, because I was thinking she was referring to like a small group, getting a small group together, just sitting around and just kind of, talking about different scriptures. But later on, I realized that she was actually referring to a book. Well, before she mentioned that, I had already started setting some of the posts aside to say, hey, maybe this could go into a small book just to kind of help people. I don't know. It's just a small thought. So when she said that, I said, oh, okay, God, is this confirmation? And so from there, I just started, compiling a lot of the posts and putting it together. Now, I will tell you, when I started putting these posts aside, it had a totally different theme. And it was maybe like, I don't know, maybe a couple of months into it, I just kind of, in my personal time with God, I was like, hey, God, I'm going to give this to you. What do you want people to know? And then it was like immediately I heard the door. Now, I know a lot of people may think that's strange or it sounds strange, but to me, it sounds like your conscience talking to you. And I was like, okay, I know nothing about the door. And then
and that's throughout all of your chapters, pretty much, your days. I mean,
exactly. Exactly. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, I do remember a few leaders and pastors and even prophets talking about this being the season of the door. This was back in September. And I didn't think any more about it. But so when I heard the door, I was like, okay, I don't know anything about this aspect. So I just started reading scripture, just really digging in and reading the different versions, like the ESV, NIV, NLT. And there's this great app online called the Bible Hub that will let you read a lot of scriptures in the different versions, back to back. So I really love that app. But yeah, I just started digging in, and it just kind of developed. It continued to develop from there. Now, we'll tell you, there's tons of research involved, just going on YouTube and reading a lot of articles to say, how do you write a book? How do you write a devotional? How do you self-publish a book? I can tell you, I know for a fact that I spent over 100 hours just in the videos alone. That doesn't include reading different articles about this whole process. So yeah.
Well, the book is beautiful, and I wanted to get into it a little bit with you. So, like, one of the day 9, ask, seek, and knock. And the scripture is, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. And so I thought that was so good, because sometimes I hear this as we need to ask God, kind of what we're praying for. And I've been the worst about that. I mean, I prayed for my health when I had breast cancer, but it's okay to ask. Did I read that right on this? I know you delve into it about the asking and the seeking and the knocking.
Yeah. So I think it's very important for us to ask, because I take the scripture for what it says. If it says to ask, then that's what I'm going to do. Now, I will tell you, I don't have any training in theology or anything like that. So I think a lot of my writing is just surface understanding. So a lot of times I have to go back to my pastors when I have like deep questions. But yeah, I think it's very important. I think he wants us to ask. I think that helps with our learning process, and just learning to, trust God and to seek him for deeper understanding. But yeah, I think it's really important.
So Stephenie, reading I started out at the beginning, as you usually do with the book, and go through, and I try to look for the theme of the book, and I was, one of the things I don't know if I was surprising, but you start out with Genesis, which in the beginning, right? But
right.
But you quickly jump to Revelations, which is kind of like,
yes, that was good too. So, I was paying attention.
So was there and one of the benefits of talking to an author is to try to get into your mindset. Is there any particular order, or how do you read this? To get in sync with your mindset of writing it.
Yeah, so I think it's funny that you asked that, because I know, just talking to many people who have read the book, some say they want to read it day to day, and then others say they like jumping around. So in trying to organize the different days, my initial thought was to have something related to a transition process, because the theme is like embracing, transitions, opportunities, and then divine encounters. It was initially to kind of have it going in that order, but as it developed, that was not the case. And I just tried to kind of, seek God in this whole process. So of course, I just feel like, all of it, of course, was God, just kind of speaking and moving. But that was the initial process, and my initial thought was to kind of keep it in that order, or always have one or the other back to back, and not just full of scripture or full of like 5 days full of transitions. And I think some sections kind of ended up that way. But I was trying to gather a wide variety from all the different books in the Bible. So that was my goal. But just depends on if there's a section that talked about the door. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, one of the chapters I like, the doors of opportunity. That was day 24, and sometimes we do have closed doors, and I've kind of, I've accepted that sometimes now. I don't cry because I know God, knows, trust God's plans. They're far greater than our own. So you talk about that, and then the unexpected open doors. And that these doors sometimes are freedom and their boundlessness. And so when a door closes, some people are crying and upset. And John and I have chatted about this. I just go, well, I give it up to God, leave it on the altar.
Right.
Sometimes so this chapter was good.
Sometimes God says no. Okay. No.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So that's one of the hardest things to kind of wrap your head around or wrap my mind around, because I feel like this book is definitely talking to me. I don't have it all together. I'm still learning. And even though I wrote about different things maybe that I've experienced, but there are some things that I haven't experienced. I'm actually a reader. I love to read books, and just reading, and, some of that has come from just, conversations and different things like that. But going back to your point, just thinking about when a door is closed and your prayers aren't answered, it's a very difficult process to go through. And I think that's just, part of life when things don't turn out the way that you think they should. And I had no intentions of sharing this, but I will share that me and my husband, we went through a process of infertility, and it didn't end up the way that we wanted. And so I had to come to terms with that. So that was a very difficult process to go through. But ultimately, I realized that, God has my best in mind. Regardless of what we went through, I always found comfort in the scriptures. So even though it didn't turn out the way that we wanted, right. There's so much comfort in the scriptures, to the point where it was like, okay, I don't like what happened. We didn't get our way, but I know that being with God and reading the scriptures, my life is so much better. So I can't just turn my back on God, because I've seen where he's come through in so many other different situations. So it's a difficult process. And I think it's just like, I don't know, I guess I think of the grieving process. You have the different stages and different things like that only you can work through. And then, things will get better. But yes, I had no intentions of sharing that story, but that's one of the things that I think about.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The other chapter, or day 56, doors of betrayal and forgiveness, because those are hard too.
It is.
Because you got to deal with these people, and even if they hurt you, we still have to pray for them.
Right.
Because we all face these kind of issues, Stephenie.
Yes. Yeah. So that's also a very, very difficult situation. And one of the things that I heard, or some advice that was given to me a long time ago, was that if you could just learn to pray for someone who has hurt you, and try not to be offended, because, of course, that offense can turn into bitterness and different things like that. But if you can just learn to, first just try to pray for them. It's hard. It's very hard. And it becomes easier. And when you pray for like good things to happen to someone, I don't know, there's just a renewed sense of comfort that comes along. And also just thinking about, when I didn't say the right thing, or I didn't do the right thing, I think about how, someone maybe continued to talk with me when I didn't say it the best way. So I have to reflect on myself first, and say, okay, I wasn't the best during this time. So if someone can forgive me, surely I can forgive someone else. So I think a lot of devotionals are primarily self-reflection. Reflect on what you're going through, what you've been through, and how to be better. How can you be better? And one of the things I think about a lot is, I think it was Andy Stanley. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, like, when you're over 40, you should be in a position to give advice to other people because you pretty much live enough and have enough experience to be able to help others. And that's something I kind of try to think about, just being able to help others or, provide a word of comfort and different things like that. And also something else I just thought about, because I was like, I guess just thinking about the Andy Stanley kind of lesson that stands out in my mind. Just growing up, before I gave my life to Christ, my oldest sister would always give me devotionals, and I never thought about that until now. So she would always give me a devotional for Christmas or maybe a birthday. So I have tons of devotionals by Joyce Myers. I think
you
Charles
better give
Stanley.
her your Stephenie Brown devotional now. I mean, it's definitely beautiful. I'm so impressed, and it's absolutely so moving. Looking at your social media, I wanted to ask you too. You said your favorite scripture is comforts us in all of our troubles. God comforts us, I guess, in all of our troubles. So why is that one your favorite scripture?
I guess because of the second part of it. It talks about how then we will be able to comfort others. So just thinking about all the things that I've gone through throughout my life, and if I can help my nieces or my nephews and just give some wisdom or some advice. And I say wisdom because I'm giving them scripture. Scripture to me is wisdom. The Bible is full of wisdom. So when I think about that, if I could just give them some type of encouragement from my process. I think many people don't realize that we all have influence within our circles, whether your mother, your sister, aunt, uncle, whatever. We all have influence with the people who are around us. And if we could just find courage to share our testimonies sometimes in those different situations when the opportunity presents itself to just talk about things that you went through in life, then I think that will help encourage someone else, especially, when I think about like immediate families. Did I answer that question or talk about that?
I think so. I mean, you're so gifted. One of the things I wrote down, God holds the ultimate authority over all creation, and his divine purposes will prevail. So I wanted you to explain that to me. I mean, because it's so beautiful.
Yeah, so I just think, again, just going back to the scripture and thinking about, I think most people are searching for, what is my purpose in life? And I'm trying to remember the one book that's real popular about finding your purpose. Mm-hmm. And I found that, when you go back to scripture, it kind of leads you to your purpose. God created us. When we think about the things that we're drawn to, that we're inclined to do, those are some precursors that will kind of say, what may be something that is your purpose. For me, I try to look back on things that I enjoy or things that I'm inclined to do. And I don't think I'm explaining that completely, I guess, the correct way that I'm kind of thinking. So, but I just think that God is the author. He knew us in our mother's womb before we were created. And I'm just paraphrasing one of the scriptures.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
So I just feel like every time that, I've talked with God in my personal time, he answers our prayers through different, avenues. Of course, it could be through a person, through just listening to a podcast or listening to the radio, different things like that. For me, he's always answered, little questions that I've had in my private time. So that's why for me, there's no shadow of a doubt, that God is real. there's
Well,
no going back.
I did love that on Facebook, because you're like, hey, when do you devote time to God, AM or PM? So I do like your Facebook. What are we missing, Stephenie? I mean, the book is brilliant. I mean, who helped you with this? Because for your first outing, this is just it's a stellar A+, hit it out of the park. You're a God warrior. For somebody that's not an official preacher, I'm like massively impressed, and I want to go to a book group on this with you now. It's so beautiful.
Oh my God! Thank you so much. This process, it has totally blown me away. It's beyond what I thought it would be. There are times where I thought, okay, what am I doing? Why do I think I should write a book? I'm like, I almost backed out and different things like that. I mean, first, again, I just say it's totally God, because when I had that thought to even put a book together, I was just like, okay, no, I don't know anything about this. And I just kind of stepped out. And that's what this whole process has been for me, because I was like, okay, putting this book together, I know nothing. So I did a lot of research, but it was still like, okay, this is crazy. But, just thinking about the process, I will tell you, I know, like, reading about how to write a book, and, there's like over 20 different things you look at. My editing process or staff has been family members. They pointed out a lot of different things, but ultimately, of course, it's my responsibility. I take full responsibility if there's any errors or anything. But I know for formatting, I use a program called Vellum, and that's compatible with my type laptop. I have a MacBook Air, but there's tons of different programs and software out there that people can use, from Reedsy, I think it's Ingram Spark, Atticus, different things like that. And then getting into the cover design, there's different programs. I think like Fiverr.
Well, and tell me, Stephenie, about, because I know your husband Corey, he's a wonderful man. How was his support in getting this to the finish line?
Yeah, he was my encouragement. He's like, you can do this, because he's more outspoken, outgoing than myself. So he was always my encouragement to just do it, keep pressing forward. He was just really like, he's always been my encouragement. I should say, when I get down or whatever, he grew up in the church. So he's always, really encouraging me to press forward and look at it, look at things a different way. So he's probably my biggest champion.
Excellent. Well, we love your husband. And the book is called The Door. It's a 90-day devotional embracing transitions, opportunities, and divine encounters. It's stellar, and I highly recommend it. And on a final note, Stephenie, tell us what God means to you as we finish our interview here.
And tell us where we can find the book.
Oh, okay.
That helped you.
So what God means to me, I just think, I think about the acronym for, well, this is related to the Bible. I think about the acronym for Bible, and it stands for, I know some people have said it's like the basic instruction. What is it? The basic instruction. I'm missing a letter for before leaving Earth or something like that. So I go to God for just about everything, or try to. Many times, if I don't, then I remember later on, okay, did you ask God? Did you seek God in doing this? So he's just my point of contact to just talk to. I enjoy just spending time with him in the morning to just kind of get ready for my day, or, if it's in the afternoon or evening, different things like that. So that's where, that's kind of like where I say I get wisdom from. The scriptures are wisdom. Other than that, go ahead.
And the book can be found on Amazon.com, and it's Stephenie with all E's in her first name, Brown, and it's The Door, the 90-day devotional embracing transitions, opportunities, and divine encounters. And it's been divine having you on, Stephenie.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful opportunity, just beyond what I could think. So thank you so much.
Well, God bless you, and we'll have you back on Veronica Live. Thanks. We'll be
Sounds
right
good.
back on Veronica Live. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and I'm here with statesman John Salek. Oh my gosh, we've got stories we need to talk about. We've had a tremendous lineup today, but I was telling you I was in Tallahassee last week and this week. And so this week it was with the Republican Liberty Caucus, and one of the bills that they were taking on, which seemed to pass, and Griffiths, our representative who I met with, was banning gay pride, transgender, and BML flags being hung at government buildings. So it passed with Griff, and you can only have an American flag or Florida flag. And so for 2 days, running around Tallahassee was a bunch of transgender men that were pretending to be women, and a bunch of people with their pride everything. And so it was just annoying. I guess like 200 of them spoke, and I'm like, your politics is not the United States of America politics. So I was happy that we pushed back on that.
It's like, if you want to fly a flag, then do it from your home and put up with your homeowners association. But it's it doesn't belong in government. Government should not be promoting lifestyles, and because people don't agree with it. I don't agree with it, and I don't think government has any business promoting it. So leave that aspect. Private actions of adults need to stay out of the public, because they're always...
It has nothing to do with our United States of America flag. The other bill that was moving forward too was if there was a historical monument or statue, you cannot mess with it in Florida. So I was happy about that, because we need to have heritage. And so all the Republicans were behind that. And the other thing that several Republicans stated during my 2 days of running around the Capitol, which, oh, by the way, it was freezing outside, and I will forever have PTSD because the elevator situation is absolute hell. There's 12 elevators, you push a button trying to figure, it goes, go to elevator A, and then there's 50 people on it. So I literally got 7,000 steps the second day I was there because I couldn't take a damn elevator. But now I lost my point because I'm having PTSD. John.
Okay.
Talking with all of these representatives, what was so interesting is they really don't like the supermajority that they have, because several of them stated that they end up fighting amongst each other, Republican against Republican, yet when it came to gun control, nobody would die on the sword for that, because they were like, oh, it's too important, our numbers are too small. Yet the next sentence would be like, oh, we're a super majority, so we're having to fight with our own Republicans. So I learned a lot this week, John, in Tallahassee.
Well, there's we have a majority, but people have to remember, that's not always the way it is, and eventually things swing back the other way, because it used to be Florida for decades was Democrat, 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 Democrat. And now it's like, well, the pendulum's on the other side there, it's all Republican super majorities. But, we saw this week there, House District 35 got flipped from Republican to Democrat because Republicans aren't paying attention,
Yeah.
And,
one of
Ron DeSantis is off running for president instead of paying attention at home.
Well, one of the interesting Northwest Florida people I met was Representative Rudman. He's actually a doctor over in Gates country, and he's a libertarian. And his quote when we met with him, and he supported most of the bills that the Republican Liberty Caucus was supporting, it was like 20 bills, he goes, I don't give a SHIT. I'm going to fight all these. And he was a freshman. And one of the bills that I briefed multiple representatives that they did not know, and it was being pushed by Senator Gruters, was that if you get a driver's license, we want to see on your driver's license a box that says you are not an American. Because a lot of times you'll go to DMV and go, oh, I can vote, and nobody checks to see if you're an American because now you have the driver's license. And this is such an easy thing for the DMV because I have the license that says I'm a veteran. So it's just verification, it's on the license, and it's one step closer to perfect election integrity. So all of the legislators I met with, which was a ton, they were in favor of this bill. So I
Well,
like that one,
well, especially
John.
with registration, driver's license registration for voter registration. I mean, it's just it. First off, that's a ridiculous process. I think people should have to expend some effort, to vote. It's not something that you're automatically going to get there. You need to be an informed voter. I don't need every idiot with a driver's license that doesn't want to be engaged.
Well, right now,
voting,
if you are that person, it's really hard for them to verify that you are not an American because you'll
Yep.
have the license.
Yep.
And so that was very, very interesting. And then
you have to prove you're American for all kinds of stuff there. You try getting a passport without proving you're a U.S. citizen, birth certificate or something, right? So it's not like this is something out of left field, But,
Well, very interesting. And then you sent me this quote. Speaker Paul Renner says it's unlikely open carry will pass this session. And that was the Speaker of the House, Pasadoma, she didn't want to hear anything about election integrity, gun rights, or freedom health issues, so that was what's surprising. These people get into these positions and it's what they want, which is great because all the freshmen are nodding their heads, we're going to follow you. But I mean, some of these issues we still need to engage on, John.
well, Pasademo's been against open carry for as long as I can remember, and I've been trying to influence. When I was on the RPOF, I was trying very hard to get that passed. I wanted to skip the constitutional carry, and for whatever reason that passed, but open carry will not pass, and I just don't get it. It's like you have half of Second Amendment right, not a full one.
Well, I don't understand how you can be a Republican and Second Amendment is not like tattooed on your arm. I don't get this, John.
Well,
that is a huge Republican issue.
Well, see, we have a supermajority, but we're not willing to expend. Not we. The politicians are not willing to expend the political capital for something that may be controversial, and then have to.
Well, since when is having a gun controversial? One of the bills that the Republican Liberty Caucus was supporting was when we have a public event like a hurricane. Normally, you can't buy guns or you can't buy ammo, and having lived through Hurricane Michael, I brought that up to every single legislator that I met with because if I'm running low on ammo and I can't call the cops because my cell phone doesn't work and I don't have an alarm, I better be able to frickin' buy ammo. And so that was what I was fighting hard for the last 2 days. Also involved in the Second Amendment.
Well, same thing. Open carry after Hurricane Michael was pretty common.
Yes,
because
it was, and nobody said anything.
Right, and I saw plenty of when the police finally managed to be able to drive into our neighborhood after 3 days because the roads were all
oh my gosh, it was so scary.
It took 3 days to get the roads open where somebody could actually drive in with a police car. But people had guns on because they were sending a message. Yeah. Don't come here because you're not going to like what happens,
And that was with my ride along with the sheriff and the Epoch Times reporter that I coordinated for that international story. Right before we got there, it was breaking news that there was they happened to be Hispanic men who didn't speak English, were in a house robbing it that nobody was at. So I witnessed this right after it happened. The cop came up and talked to the sheriff, said, we got him. They were stealing tools, okay. But can you even imagine when you can't call somebody? It is freaking scary. It is scary. I've lived it.
Well, the fact is, if you rely, given the response times for police to get there, if you have to wait to call them to protect yourself, you're dead. That's basically what it comes down to. And it's like, by the time you say,
it wasn't one or two that broke into that house. I think it was like 4 or 5 men that were in that house.
Right. And it's like, if they know you're armed, they're not coming in. Okay. I think one of the best videos I saw this week was of an 80-year-old shop owner, liquor store owner, and he has all kinds of video cameras on the outside and the inside of the place. And he saw these perpetrators drive up in their BMW in the parking lot. And they got out and he saw that one of them had an AR-15 type rifle. And he saw he knew
I'm awake now.
Right, he knew what was coming, so he grabbed his shotgun and he had it ready And the guy comes in and he's pointing this AR-15 gun at the owner and saying, give me your money, And the guy, he's actually said, put up your hands. And the guy brings up the shotgun and shoots him. Didn't hesitate. Not one. Didn't say, drop your gun. I'm going to shoot you. He just aimed at him and blew him up. And it was like, that's the way it goes. And the guy runs out. He wasn't dead, but he ran out of the store, and you could hear him on the audio capture of the video cameras. He's getting into this BMW SUV, by the way, so these are poor robbers. But he's screaming, he shot my arm off. He shot my arm off. Of course, the police were able to catch all of them because, first off, the BMW license plate was plain as day. And then the guy had his arm shot off and had to go to the hospital. So the police were able to catch all these people. But that's what it takes, okay? That's what it's coming down to is if you want to defend yourself if you want to save your life, you need to be able to defend yourself immediately against these criminals and not worry about what's going to happen. And it's not getting any better. The one of the big stories this week, and Matt Gaetz is quoted as like he's calling the Senate bill for amnesty for all these illegals, okay, a nightmare bill. And he's absolutely right. And it's being put together, quote, bipartisan. Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma and the Democrats are working together to basically give all these, and the guess is 10 million, 15 million, who knows, immigrants, all amnesty and let them stay in the country and become U.S. citizens. And that's the price to pay for getting something done on the border so they can get Ukraine their freaking money. I mean, it's insane listening to this stuff.
Well, this is Gates's quote. It gives legal status to illegal aliens who have gamed our system and broken our laws. It rolls out the red carpet for 5,000 illegals every day forever. And that was on X. And I'm like, this is crap, John. We don't know who these people are. And then how many have been driven drunk? Like some guy just killed a bunch of people and he was kicked out 4 times and always like arrested with these drunk driving, charges. And then he was back again. I'm all for worker visas. I say this all the time, but why do you have to be an American? You're not.
Well, what I want to know, Veronica, is why do we have to pass more laws when they're not enforcing any of the current laws? These people are not going to enforce. You can pass laws till you're blue in the face. If you don't bother to enforce any of them, what's the point? I mean, that's what I don't get. It's like, oh, we're gonna fix the border. We're gonna pass some laws and fix the border. It's like you don't need to pass any more laws. You've got everything you need to fix the border right now. You just have an administration, Mayorkas, Biden, that don't want to do it.
In this story from our Afterburner, according to the Immigration Accountability Project, the bill would increase green cards by 50,000 a year, work permits for adults, children of H-1B holders, immediate work permits to every illegal alien released from custody. Okay, so we've arrested you. Taxpayer-funded lawyers to certain UACs and mentally incompetent aliens. Expulsion authority for a limited number of days only if encounters exceed 5,000 a day over a 7-day period, and restricts parole for those who enter without authorization between ports of entry. I don't know. It's hard enough, Gates said, to stop the far left state-sponsored invasion of our southern border, and it's even harder when you're pulling Senator Lankford daggers out of our back. I oppose the Senate amnesty deal and will work to see it defeated. We need to close the border or close the government. This is leverage we have.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And the number one issue by far with Republicans for the 2024 election is immigration. Stopping this mess at the border. People are tired of it. And the answer is close the border. And that's exactly what Donald Trump says he's going to do on day one. I'm going to close the border. That's I'm going to be dictator for a day. I'm going to close the border. And that's what it's coming down to. And that's what it needs to happen. And then they need to round all these people up and send them back. I'm sorry if they think that.
Well, and even
what we're doing to our
Speaker
country.
Mike Johnson said the White House, the administration, Homeland Security Mayorkas have put a welcome mat out, so we know that we have people coming from nearly 170 countries around the world, and again, many are dangerous people. Stop the flow. We need to stop the flow. And he says it's a triage, and it is.
Right. And the Republicans, the only leverage the Republicans have is the Ukraine funding bill and the Israeli funding bill, because the Senate, the Democrats are desperate for the Ukraine money, because that's their piggy bank. That's their money laundering piggy bank. That's why they want money to go to Ukraine. And so, by the way, we're not the only ones that can send money to Ukraine. Britain just pledged, what was it, 50 billion or something in Ukraine aid, and you've got all of Europe that's plunging money. So this crap about if the U.S. doesn't send money, Ukraine is done is crap. We'll start with that part. But the only leverage we have is that Ukraine bill, and it ought to be pretty simple. You want the Ukraine bill, shut the border down, period. That's the end of the conversation. That should be the end of the conversation on the Republican side, saying we're not going to do it. We are.
Well, we've got that, and then the last story I want to chat with you before we talk about some of our cartoons is the Teslas on ice, John. You need to take it away, baby.
That was so funny.
Guess what? It's been snowing. My daughter, who lives in New York, sent me pictures in New York City. My best friend lives in D.C., got pictures of D.C. because they were shut down the last couple days. It's been snowing, John. And what happens when it snows?
It gets cold, And what happens to electric batteries in cars when it gets cold? They lose their charge and they don't work. And oh, by the way, how do you heat an electric car? It doesn't have an engine with hot water or hot coolant.
Do you get Joe Biden to blow on it?
Got
blow in your hair
in there. So you're competing with heating you inside the car and heating your windshield and your heated seats, all using up that battery, so it's competing with you.
And we know, I know this because I was in Tampa this week, and then I went to Tally, and it was freezing Saturday in Tampa, and it was freezing in Tallahassee. And guess what happens to your cell phone on your phone? There it goes. It goes, starts dropping, and I wasn't doing anything on my cell phone.
Well, what's funny, because people don't understand technology. So, these lithium ion batteries, you literally have to have a battery heater when it gets cold, when it gets freezing outside.
Yeah.
You have to have a battery heater to warm them up. So where do you get the electricity? If your batteries aren't working, where do you get the electricity to heat up your batteries to make them work? I mean, the logic is so
I saw
funny.
some Instagram video that was so funny. It was a woman pulled up to a gas station, so it must have been a rental, in her Tesla, and she was walking around the car trying to see where the cap was to put gas in. So she was definitely having a bad blonde moment, which was so funny.
These people, and you can start from the Davos. Davos was this week, and all these idiots up there with their climate change and all this stuff. And I laugh at these people. It is so funny, and it's even funnier to watch their grand plans collapsing, for climate change. Listening to, who is it, Christine Lagrange, French woman that's in charge of the World Bank, I think is what her thing is. But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
She's talking about how, it's going to take $1 trillion a year that has to be spent in order to facilitate these green energy transitions. And I'm like, who in the hell is going to pay all that money? I mean,
you and me,
which
I gotta say though, because the Babylon Bee it was so freaking funny. It says World Economic Forum concludes event with virgin sacrifice to weather gods to prevent climate change, and it has a bunch of Indians dancing on stage.
And the funniest one I saw
the Babylon Bee.
I thought the funniest one I saw was they had some Indian woman priestess or whatever. I don't know what her title is, but and I think she was like a South American Indian kind of thing. I don't know.
Okay.
Aztec, whatever, Peru, wherever she was from. But anyway, she had this red paint on her face and stuff. and she's doing all these hand waves and blowing stuff, and she walks up to each of these people and basically spits on them.
Oh no!
It was so funny watching these world leaders sitting there in their chairs.
Oh my gosh!
Attentively, and having this woman put her hands on their head and basically spit on their forehead. And I'm laughing. It's like, you people are so freaking stupid, that it's incredible. If you think this.
Well, I've got to highlight two more Babylon Bee. So it was the March for Life this week, and those poor people, in a blizzard, they were marching for life. But Babylon Bee had a picture of them, and it says, "We would prefer if 3,000 babies weren't murdered every day," says crowd of deranged extremists. And then the quote is, "It's disturbing to be reminded that lunatics like this really exist. Oh my gosh, we want to save babies." So that one was funny. And then this one's really funny. It's Trump. It's a Trump 2024 sign, and it has DeSantis holding it. John, I don't know if you can see the sign here or not, but it says, "Trump offers DeSantis coveted administration position," spinning the Trump sign on the street corner like he works for Little Caesars. And then my favorite one was the one you sent me. It's the milk carton, and it has "missing Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin." What the hell? That was my favorite one. You're so good at picking.
That one, that's a story that didn't get much attention, and I don't know why. I mean, it was like a brief flash.
Congress is calling for hearings now. And then it came out yesterday, the 911 tapes, and his aide had called on January 1st, 911, and said, "Don't come pick him up with sirens, or lights." And so it's all been so secretive. But this tells you that this administration is not cohesive.
Well, you and I are both former military, and you work for flag officers. What would have happened if a flag officer, in charge of whatever wing or command or whatever,
he would have been gone because the commanders need to know what you're doing. And this is an accountability issue of, they always have like green, yellow, red. Well, he was definitely in the red, not in charge. And who did he pass the baton to? Because his vice was in Puerto Rico on vacation. He didn't even know.
Well, what the part that really alarmed me was apparently the day before, or right before he went into surgery, he was on a phone call with Biden, and Biden was wanting options on striking the Houthis in Yemen. And apparently strikes were authorized. And it's like, whoa. The Secretary of Defense is having an operation, and he's under anesthesia, and there's strikes going on. Who the hell is running the Defense Department? Because his deputy didn't know a damn thing about it. And it's like,
embarrassing.
You don't
embarrassing.
Right. It's like, wait a minute, we've got a break in the chain of command here. The president says go do the strikes. The Secretary of Defense is missing in action, and are his combatant commanders running the operations on their own with no supervision, with nothing?
Under Democrat, when you're in the military under the Democrats, your hands are so tied when it comes to warfare.
Right, because the lawyers are
that's the thing. I can't believe that they were launching anything, which, by the way, it's about damn time we do, because how much of this crap are we going to take from Iran? But who is in charge? There's no chain of command.
Oh, you read the piece there in about the Houthis there. Did you know that we told the Houthis ahead of time where we were going to strike so they could get other people out?
We're writing our own Houthi and the Blowfish song. I mean these people are stupid.
Well, this is insane use of the military. We're just wasting millions of dollars, probably tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, shooting missiles to blow up buildings that don't have anything or anybody in them anymore. This is as stupid,
out of control, which leads to the last political cartoon of the week you sent me. And it's this He-Man thing with pink hair, eyelashes, obviously a man. And it says Minnesota Education on his shirt. And then his desk has a Biden 2024 sticker on it. And I think that was the Obama logo. And then he's surrounded by, it says reading essay assignments on his board.
Yeah.
Cops are racist. Transgender rights in sports. Whites are oppressors. Why the USA sucks, and Do Friday. And then it has 2 + 2 = 3, which I lived through Common Core. And then it's got a BLM little sign, support gay pride, free Palestine. Yeah, it was a, take out Israel sign. And then this kid's like, but shouldn't you teach us how to read and write first? I mean, that one's freaking awesome. Oh, that was awesome.
I always used to laugh about the commies and propaganda, and they would, all the indoctrination in their schools and stuff. And what we're doing it now. We don't care about reading and writing. Who cares if the kids can't read or write? What we're willing to sacrifice generations of kids on political correctness, and it needs to stop. It really does.
Our next show, I can't wait to have Drew Allen on. He was on a famous British show. He's got the clip on his Instagram, and so it was Drew Allen, some conservative British dude, and then a liberal that starts out lying, spewed lies about America and blah, blah, Trump, and Trump's a dictator, and Drew shut his ass down. So Drew will be joining us next week, but it's even in Europe, in the Great Britain. So, which, it's been so
That's
insane.
not saying much.
Well, I want to close too, because did you know I got to see Troy Aikman in Tampa? He was at my restaurant, and the restaurant was called The Meat Market, John. And so he's sitting in the middle of this restaurant, which, oh, by the way, I had to wait 3 hours with my friends because I didn't have reservations to the meat market, and it truly was a meat market. No, their specialty steak. It's steak. My steak was fabulous, but so Malcolm came out of the bathroom, my husband, and Troy Aikman's bigger than my husband, who's a big guy, but he was so cute. And he was with Joe Buck, and they had football on the table, prepping, because I guess they were emceeing the Monday night Tampa Bucks game. But I got to see Troy Aikman at my restaurant, so I just wanted to let you know.
Now, Tom Brady, is he next on the list?
I don't know. No, I've never liked Tom
Tebow,
Brady.
You had Tim Tebow,
No, I am a cougar for Tim Tebow, and he's such. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. I'll have to share it on my Veronica Live social media. But Miss America she is an Air Force officer, and they've got her. They said, the soldier who's a fighter pilot at Top Gun wins Miss America. No, it's Miss America who graduated from the academy, who's at Harvard Business School now getting a master's, won Miss America. But the interview that she did on today's show, finally, Tim Tebow is the total ultimate package for our youth. We have Lieutenant Marsh now. Miss America is the total ultimate package. I will share that interview. She was exquisite that even the ladies on the Today Show couldn't, their mouths were on the floor because she was so amazing. Talking about her mother, talking about being an officer and how she can represent and wear so many hats. And I was right there, because to have that age, I think she's probably 22, 23, to have that wisdom. I've raised children that are like that, but not most people can deliver at that age. Absolutely awe-inspiring interview, John. I was so impressed. Impressed. So we have hope.
Yep. America's not gone to hell in a handbasket yet. So.
Well, anyways, great show. Oh my gosh, we thank Attorney Jason Gonzalez. He was on the front lines of Iowa. And so he's fighting for Governor Ron DeSantis, America's governor, which we might need based on these court cases. So really, DeSantis can't drop out. But please, I can't take Nikki Haley at all. So no, thank you. And then our Sheriff Tommy Ford, this Wednesday coming up at noon at the Government County Building is his launch. He's invited me to attend that, so I will be there. And then we've got Father Michael Nixon. One of my priests from St. Dominic Catholic Church talked about thethirdoption.com in Bay County, trying to save marriages. And then, of course, we thank Stephenie Brown from The Door. It's a 90-day devotional. It was excellent. And stay warm. We need some heat.
Yeah, it's going to get 30 degrees as the high today. So I'm looking forward to staying in that warm house.
Tampa was freezing. Tally was ridiculous, But anyways, do follow us on all of our social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Podcast Addict, you name it. And what a great show, John! And happy birthday, because you just hit 69, and you are one of the good guys out there. So happy birthday!
Thank you.
Sending birthday hugs. And then I am now mother of a 30-year-old. That happened yesterday, so I'm still in mourning because I'm only 25. So
I say them numbers don't add up.
I know. Well, God bless you, and thanks for tuning in to Veronica Live, everyone. Take care.